Alright all, and welcome back to another video and the Sunday preview or day 2 preview of the Dublin Racing Festival, and another brilliant day's action to get ahead of us on Sunday with 8 races, 4 grade 1s in there as well, and some seriously good horses going forward both tomorrow and obviously going forward to the Cheltenham Festival. It's currently 10:15 on Saturday morning, so we haven't seen anything that's happened so far. Hopefully the selection's run pretty well, keeping the fingers crossed, but not really around this evening, so it's decided to get this video in early. It's going to be up as quickly as I can get it up, maybe at 11 o'clock, maybe at 12 o'clock or something. So there's enough time for everyone to watch it if they feel the need to do so. But you're here to see me rambling. I did an awful lot of my plugs yesterday. Looking at True Dreamer, she ran actually a lovely race up in Dundalk. I know she finished 10th in the end, but she ran a lovely race over a mile, which wouldn't have been her trip. Shane Foley gave her a nice educational ride. She's still as green as grass. She hits that home straight in Dundalk and goes, oh, Jesus, it's a big space, and she starts running around a fair bit. But hopefully there's a bit of fun with her. We've guaranteed ourselves a mark with that run. We were within 15 lengths of a 75 rated horse, which should hopefully get us a mark in and around the 48, 49, and that could make us competitive, I suppose, on in a soft ground. Mile 2 furlong, 45 to 65, hopefully in a couple of runs time. But we were quite impressed. Also Brendan had a very good run with a horse called My Jewel Angel, who stormed home in the same race to come fourth. So good on Brendan, who's obviously one of our trainers. So that's all well and good. Moving on to the action on Sunday, starting off with the Paddy Mullins Mares Handicap Hurdle, a very tricky race. I know, and some bookies are going 6 places, some are only going 4. I've got 2 for you in this. Again, it's one of these ones for the more competitive races. I've kind of got 2, and then for some of the smaller races, I've just got the 1. But the 2 in this, I know there's obviously some heavy Paul Nolan propaganda on this channel often, but I really do like the look of Mrs. Milner in this race, and I think that's it's a little bit like latest exhibition. Mrs. Milner has been one of the very few horses for Paul Nolan this year that's actually been running to form consistently. They went over to Cheltenham in the November meeting with her to run against On the Blind Side, who was favoured actually for the Cleeve Hurdle today before that race got abandoned. Weatherby's card has gotten abandoned, but obviously On the Blind Side is a very good horse, and she finished within a half length of him in second with Robbie Power riding him, and then she went back to running the Pertemps qualifier at Leopardstown over Christmas, where she finished 4th behind Dandy Mag, the Boss's Oscar, and Unexpected Depth. I rate that as very hard, good form and very robust form. She's dropping back to 2 mile 2. I'm not sure whether that's going to be madly to her strength. I would have liked her maybe back at 2.5 or something. Probably a little bit of an in-between trip. But she's off a mark 129. And it wouldn't surprise me, just as she's qualified for the Pertemps, that they may be spying a run in the Pertemps, especially given the way they ran over at Cheltenham at November. I wasn't sure. That was a bit of a strange place to go and run. Unless there wasn't some idea, but she'd have to go and win or go very close tomorrow if she's going to get up into a position where she could qualify for the Pertemps, because she'd probably need to be up to a mark in the mid 130s in Ireland before even contemplating running in the Pertemps, even off a bottom weight. I don't know exactly what the bottom weight usually is in the Pertemps, but I assume, considering the top weight's 152 usually, that it would be 137, I'd say 136. They're usually quite compressed handicaps, with heaps of runners wanting to run in the race. So she'd want to go up a few pounds, that's for sure. Look, I'm going to leave it up to you. She's 12 to 1 each way at the moment with Coral, which is only 4 places, and she's 10 to 1 each way with Bill Hill, who are 6 places. So I'd be more probably siding towards the 6 places, because it just gives you a little bit more insurance. I think she's a very good each way price, though. As I say, she's got decent enough form at Leopardstown. She was second in a Mares Maiden Hurdle behind Larka Booze last year on heavy ground, and obviously ran in the Pertemps qualifier over Christmas. The ground over Christmas was grand. It's probably going to be very similar ground to what it was over Christmas. A bit of dig in there, but this Leopardstown course does dry up remarkably quickly, and we've had a drier couple of days. There might be a shower or 2 today before Sunday, so we'll have to see what the ground's doing, but I don't think the ground should be of much issue to her, and actually maybe even the softer it gets, the more it will play into her stamina strengths. The other one I'd give you in this race, she's just been a little bit disappointing this year, is the Getaway star for the Queally team, of a mark of 123. I struggle to believe that this horse can't be competitive of 1, 2, 3, to be honest. She was second in a listed bumper last year at Market Raisin behind Panic Attack. Now, I know that form doesn't look quite as good as it maybe did at the time, but she came fourth in a listed mares novice hurdle up at Down Royal on her seasonal reappearance, only beaten 2.5 lengths. Some good mares in there. I know Sky Ace won the race, which was a bit... which kind of threw the form a little bit all in the air, but Queen's Brook was second. There was a Henry de Bromhead mare, whose name escapes me, back in third in Kenny Alexander's colours, and Politesse was back in fifth for Lorna Fowler, who I know they rate quite highly as well. So she was in amongst decent enough mares there, but the last 2 runs have been a bit disappointing, especially when third last time out behind Manila Escape at Tramore. I know that was an all-sex maiden hurdle, but she couldn't, make use of a mare's allowance, and was beaten 10, 12 lengths in the process. Now, Manila Escape might be a nice enough horse, but I think she's got to improve for that. But over mark 123, the handicapper's given her a chance. She does lack hurdling experience and handicap experience at that as well. This is her first handicap, and it's going to be a tricky one at that. There's 22 runners, I believe. So there's no room for errors, but she's the type of mare that might be, worth a little bit of a punch. She's 14 or 16 to 1, depending on where you look. It's a price where you can take a look at, and take a risk at. Like, it's not like we're taking a risk at 6 to 1. Like, it's 14, 16 to 1. It's not a bad each-way price. And I give those two against the field. Hopefully, the two of them can run solid races and at least run into the frame, if not try and challenge to get a win. Obviously, if one of them won, it would be absolutely super. Moving on to the second race, the Spring Juvenile Hurdle. Obviously, no Zana here in this race and no French Seal in this race, which was maybe a little bit more surprising, which is a shame because I would have taken on French Seal. Leaving Quilixios and Youmdor, and I do believe it's probably between the two. I think the other 4 might be spying, Boodle's marks in there. Maybe Hador might be, might cause a bit of an upset if there was to be one, but I do believe it's probably between the two. And I'm going to take a chance on the prices on Youmdor here at 11 to 4 for Willie Mullins and Paul Townend. There's just... and I don't know. I don't know whether it's because every man and dog seems to be putting them up at the moment, but I'm struggling to quite fall for Quilixios at the moment. Everyone's putting him up for the Triumph Hurdle. Everyone thinks he's a search for the Triumph Hurdle, and that he's better than Zana here and all this. And I just look at it from an honest form book perspective, and he hasn't beaten anything in Ireland. Like, he's won twice. He's won twice very comfortably. He's looked like a very good horse, looks like a potential Grade 1 horse. I completely understand that. But at the face of things, like, the horses he's beaten, he should be beating. And if I'm going to crab French Seal for what I thought was winning a Mickey Mouse maiden hurdle at Christmas time, I have to be somewhat crouching this horse for winning Mickey Mouse races so far. I think one at Punchestown at the start of the season and one at Down Royal then at the November meeting there. I know he had some back form over in France, but I'm just taking it on his Irish form, and he would still need to step up. Just in comparison to Youmdor, who I believe would have beaten Tiupu last time out. I think that's fair to say. I think he might have beaten him a length or two as well, quite cosily. I think that form is better than what Quilixios has achieved so far. Maybe Quilixios has more room for improvement. Perhaps that's the case. But he's even money. And Youmdor is 11 to 4. And he would have beaten Tiupo, who's a good horse and potentially has a real decent chance in a Boodles if he ran there. There was Autumn Evening and Druid's Altar in behind as well, who have been robust enough yardsticks for these juvenile hurdles all the way through the year. I thought that was a quality run. The only thing you're obviously taking into account is that he's coming to this race now off the back of a fall. And some horses learn from it. Some horses, next time out, they're still jumping terribly, and it's really knocked the confidence out of them. Hopefully it's the former rather than the latter. And 11 to 4, I think he's worth a chance at the prices. I think he's a better price than Quilixios around even money. Moving on to the 210, the big Grade 1 Novices hurdle. An awful lot of these were running at Christmas time, so it'll be interesting to see whether that form upholds itself. Appreciated's in there at 8 to 11. 8 to 11, as you well know, isn't really a horse I'd be getting massively stuck into, but I do think he's going to win, so it'll be my selection for the race. But I'm also going to give you an each-way alternative in the shape of Master McShee at 10 to 1. Look, he's the type of horse, I don't know, he's probably turning into Bob Hope or No Hope territory here, where I'm talking so much about him that there's not a hope of him running well. But I do think he's a very good horse. I was a little bit disappointed he's not running in the handicap hurdle today. I thought he'd have made a mockery of them. Up 143, but you know, they've taken the Grade 1 option, and fair dues to them. You know, they've every right to. I think he's every right to star in a Grade 1 novice hurdle, and he's every right to be 10 to 1 or 12 to 1, whatever you can pick up. I don't think that's a bad each way price. Look, Ballyadam, he's better than what he showed at Christmas. There's no getting away from that. But I still have reservations about his jumping. I still have his reservations about that Royal Bond form, because I don't think he was under par that day, and he's just clung on to be Caskmate and Ngolo. And I don't rate that form at all, to be honest. I know some people quite like Caskmate and Ngolo, but I don't see it myself. And I think he's got a fair bit to prove, and he's 5 to 1. It's not even a great each way price at that to be getting stuck into, considering he has to find, you know, in theory 15 or 16 lengths with Appreciated. So do a couple of the others. Cascon Risk may be a little bit better this time. He might get a little closer as well. I think he's quite a nice horse, but it'd be Appreciated for me. I think he's rock solid. I think he's still actually a little bit underrated, to be honest. People love throwing stones at him, just because I think he probably cost a few people a few anti-post dockets in the bumper last year. He cost me an anti-post docket in the bumper, and I'm still one of his number one fans. I think he's a lovely horse. He's a very professional horse as well, you know. He travels up with the pace, he jumps well, he quickens, you know. I don't know what else you want to see from the horse. Personally speaking, I don't think there's a hope in hell he'll run into Ballymore either. When you think of the fact that Brave Man's Game, Bob Ollinger, potentially Gallard de Menil, we might even see something today in the Nathaniel Lacey race that we haven't personally seen yet. You know, or perhaps a Blue Lord might step back up in trip and stuff like that. I know Blue Lord's in this 1 over 2 miles. He might run all right. Brian Cooper's booked for him, I see. Good on Brian getting all these spare rides over the 2 weeks. But that's me going on a bit of a tangent. I think Appreciate's rock solid. I think he'll run in the Supreme, because I think he'll win on the weekend. And I don't think you can go to the Ballymore after winning on the weekend. So him for me, Master McShee each way. Moving on to the next, the 240, which is the William Fry 3 mile handicap hurdle. Again, 2 in this, 2 though well found in the market, and 2 horses I do like quite a lot. I'm going to start actually with the bigger price one, because the bigger price one is kind of my main selection for the race, and it's Unexpected Depth for Ollie McKiernan. And I was saying it on the Let's Talk Racing video with Josh. I do like this horse an awful lot. I think he's a quality horse. I do have a bit of a soft spot for these Ollie McKiernan horses. I'm sure many of you will know that, especially if you've followed me on Twitter for any length of time. I might as well be his PR representative at this stage. Look, I know Mick, who's one of the regular commenters, said on that video that he didn't believe McKiernan was in good form, which is fair enough. The form in, the overall look of his season form looks pretty crap, to be honest. I think he's 4 runners from 120, or 4 winners, sorry, from 120 runners or something. But over the last a month and a half, he was not for you forget he was around 0 for 65 leading up to early December, and he's kind of been 4 from 40 with 15 or 16 placed horses since. Even Capicom placed at Down Royal on Thursday, running a decent race at 20 to 1. So they're mostly running well. I do understand that there's probably not that many winners on the board, and as a result, you might think a horse like Unexpected that might run well without winning. There is a part of me that does think that might be the case. But he's 10 to 1, I think, with a firm with Coral at the moment, which seems a big price, considering he's as short as 7 to 1, I think, with a couple of others. I think 10 to 1's a really good each way price in this race. off a mark 141. That's unchanged from Christmas, I believe, when he finished third, as I say, behind Dandy Mag and the Bosses Oscar. I mentioned that before with Mrs. Milner's form. Before that, he won a handicap hurdle, Punchestown over 3 miles. That was on the back of a big absence as well. He's still a young, improving horse. I think he's only 7. He did have a year and a bit out after winning a couple of races when he was younger. I think he's one of the best horses McKiernan has in the yard. I think he's up there with the likes of Gallant John Joe, obviously being rated in the 140s. He's a decent enough horse. And just knowing with the yard, you're there thinking, like, you've got to think that these smaller yards, they're going to have a horse bang ready for Sunday. You know, it's a 60 grand to prize money to the winner, you know, for the likes of McKiernan and for the likes of the trainer I'm about to mention. You know, these are big money and big pots to be winning, and I'd be shocked if they're thinking long term and instead they're not thinking just about Sunday. So Unexpected Depth at 10 to 1. And the one, it's a little bit of a saver, I suppose some people might call it, but I won on him a couple of weeks ago. I put him up on one of the videos for racing at Navan, I think it was. Navan, yep. And it's Damalisque for Eddie Hart. He's in here at 5 to 1. He's the favourite. I'm going to go 5 to 1 each way, just like I went 5 to 1 each way when he won a couple of weeks ago. He won by 8 lengths, beating Monlino. He's up, I think, £12 for that, which is a fair hike. But he won with bags in hand. Like, this horse is very well handicapped. Eddie Hardy, obviously one of our trainers with Horse Racing Buddy Club, they were ecstatic with his win last time out, and hopefully he can go and do the job again. I'm sure they'll have him primed to run again. He's been a bit of a fragile sort in years gone by, but his form this year is very good. He was obviously second to Barnavadon in a big pot handicap back in November time. He then went out and kind of got compensation for that small defeat by winning last time, and I still think there's mileage in the mark yet. And I know 5 to 1 is a small price, especially for a handicap of this nature, but I think he'll run very, very well. But Unexpected Depth, probably I'd have as my first selection in that, and I'm going to do that the way I put the selections in the description below. I'll have Unexpected Depth as the first one. I do really like him for Ollie McKiernan. Moving on to the 310, the Flogas Novices Chase. Brilliant race, absolute burn-up of a race, I think. Monkfish latest exhibition, Jan O'Dale, Andy Dufresne, Asterion Forlange. A really, really seriously good race. Look, I just think at the moment, I think Monkfish is most likely winner, and there's no getting away from that. I think he probably does hold latest exhibition, because I do know when I say latest exhibition, everyone's going to go, oh, well, there's not a chance of him beating him. I get that, but the one thing I will say about latest exhibition that I can't comprehend is that I always feel he's a little bit overpriced. And he's in here at 7 to 2. And I just think, like, people with bigger pockets than me, now I'm not a massive stakes punter or anything, but people with bigger pockets than me, 7 to 2 is borderline a very good each way price for this horse. He's never been out of the first 2. He runs his race all the time, or pretty much all the time. He jumps well, especially on this type of ground. It would be ideal ground for him, a little bit nicer than what he endured when he was beaten by Pensful of Lead in the Florida Pearl. He got bogged down in the ground that day. He's 7 to 2. I just think it's too big. I think he's a 5 to 2 chance. Like, he's been beaten a nose in the Bartlett and beaten a length and a half or 2 lengths or whatever it was at Leopardstown at Christmas time with Cooper easing up in the last 50 yards. There shouldn't be as much of a discrepancy as Monkfish 4 to 6 and latest exhibition 7 to 2. You can understand, perhaps you think Monkfish will beat latest exhibition, fair enough. Monkfish maybe he should be 4 to 6, fair enough. But if he's 4 to 6, latest exhibition should be 9 to 4. I believe. I just can't understand how you'd have him at some sort of price where some people could back him each way at 7 to 2. I think that's too big. I know Asterion Forlange, he's 14, 16 to 1. Jeez, he's borderline a bet at that price just because you know the ability's there, but he's an absolute Looney Tune. There's no getting away from that. I can't. You couldn't put him up because you just can't back him with any type of confidence, and I can't advise to back him. But it's getting near on a really good price, I think, because he's just a super horse. Like, he's got such a good engine. Winning at this festival last year showed that, but I don't know what you do with the steering for launch. It'd be interesting to see whether the new tactics, I know they're trying to hold him up this time round, whether that will work. Patrick Mullins is on him this time round. Another new jockey gets a go. I'm sure if Patrick doesn't get the goods out of it, it will be Brian Cooper next, and then on to Rachel Blackmore, whoever can steer the horse. But look, latest exhibition for me in this at 7-2. Whether you want to back that each way or not probably depends on how much money you have. I'll probably have a little each way on him and a little one on the nod as well. I just think he should be shorter. Completely understand Monkfish will most likely beat him, but you have to agree he has to be a 9-4 shot. I can't understand how there's 3.5 points in the betting when he's beaten him 2 lengths in 2 runs. It's not for me anyway. I think there's a bit of a mismatch there. The 340, the Irish Gold Cup. I've been quite sweet on Delta Work for a little bit here. I've backed him at 5-1 for the race. He's now best price 4-1, so I haven't exactly stolen the price or anything like that. I think he's a fair price of 4-1. Manila Indo has a fall to overcome. We've an unseat to overcome. It was a Mickey Mouse type of fall as well. He just needs Jack Kennedy on him. I think he's a 2-1 shot with Jack Kennedy on him. And he's around a 40-1 shot with another on him. He just seems to love Jack. They do like Leopardstown. Hopefully he can jump a bit better. I'm not sure about Mellon and Ken Boy. Like Mellon, I don't think comprehensively stays, and Ken Boy is good around Leopardstown, but that was his first piece of worthwhile form for a while now, when he was second in the Savills at Christmas and A Plutar ran them down. Look, I don't really fancy A Plutar for the Gold Cup, personally speaking, but I don't know how you can see that form. Allaho, I suppose, was fourth. He went on to win over 2.5 miles, but I don't think he ran his race over 3 miles. Very hard to comprehend. But I do think Delta Works probably the best price in there, 4-1, and hopefully he can gain a bit of compensation for that unseat in the Savills Chase. The 410, the Leopardstown Chase, a really trappy handicap. One of the real juicy ones, the 2-5 handicap chase, it always is. You do need to be a good jumper. You usually need to be on the pace for this race as well. The last couple of years has shown. Obviously, Last Goodbye won it a couple of years ago. He came from a prominent enough position to win. Whisper in the Breeze made all in the race, and I think Glamorgan Duke won it last year, and he was very handy as well. So it's one that's shown that you need to be up with the speed. But that being said, one of the hard luck stories of last year was Fitzhenry, and I know I've put him up a couple of times. It's maybe blind backing at this stage. But Brian Cooper's in the saddle, and I thought his run in the Paddy Power was encouraging. He came 7th, but he travelled into the race very well, and he's now down to a mark of 139, which was £2 less than what he was carrying in this race last year, where he was brought to a standstill at 2 out when absolutely cantering under Barry Geraghty. The one thing I'm a little bit up in the air about is that I do think it's a horse that actually Barry Geraghty managed to get the best out of. I thought Barry Geraghty was super on him, because he's a real tricky ride. He's a bit of a monkey of a horse, but Cooper's on him. I think he might be for the first time, even though he's Paul Nolan's stable jock, obviously because he's got the McManus connection. There's heaps of McManus horses in here. Fitzhenry at 20-1, I think is not a bad each way bet. And also another JP runner that I'll be backing, just because, well, not just because I did put him up for the Tim Duggan at Limerick over Christmas, is the Long Mile for Phil Dempsey. I think he's got a massive chance here, even off a mark of 145. He's gone up, again, I think he's gone up £12 for that run in the Tim Duggan. I think he won that off 133, but he won it by 22 lengths. So he's more than entitled to go up £12 for an effort like that. I thought he was superb that day. He is an improving horse. He's only 7 years of age, and I think there's another big pot in him. And I know an awful lot of people are very sweet on Cross My Mind, who's a similar enough profile, really, you know, winning a handicap chase well the last day. Now, I know he's maybe better weighted going into this race, but I think the Long Mile even is still a really improving horse, and I'd be disappointed if a mark of 145 was completely beyond him. He's 12-14-1. I think that's overpriced. And one I'm just going to mention, just because on the off chance he gets in, I think he's second reserve at the moment. I know unlikely to get in, so this may well just be a non-runner. But at the Acorn for Tony Martin. You know, I'm a bit of a Tony Martin Cliff man, but the Cliff was finally eroded yesterday at Dundalk. The Mouse Doctor put up at 9-1, winning the mile 4 handicap, and finally as well, because it was Tony's first winner, I think, for 3 months. So I'm sure he's silently ecstatic about it. He wouldn't show you in his interviews that he was ecstatic about anything, but I think at the Acorn's always had a handicap like this in him, but he's off, considering he's off a mark of 130, but he has to get in. He does have form tied in with the long mile. That's where I'm really coming. He beat the long mile very cosily at Fairyhouse last year, when the two of them were still very impressive, improving horses, and then he finished 6th in this race. He too was very badly hampered at 2 out in the fall, which brought Fitzhenry to a standstill. At the Acorn got a fair whack as well, and that completely killed his momentum. He was coming into the race potentially to run a really good race. I think he would have finished 3rd or so last year. He ended up finishing 6th in the result. Look, I think he's got a massive chance at 14-1 if he was to sneak in off 130. And finally, the Mayor's Bumper. Not a race, I think, just because there's so many Willie Mullins horses in there, unbeaten horses as that. Gordon's also got 1 or 2 in there. If you've had a bad day at Leopardstown on Sunday, I wouldn't advise this as a good get-out stakes, personally. I'm going to put up Brandy Love at 11-8. I think it's just a reputation thing. She obviously did it very well in her point-to-point. She did it well in her first bumper, and I think very highly of her, but they've got 3 or 4 very good mares in there, Willie Mullins. Wouldn't surprise me. He's won this with 2nd and 3rd strings before. Wouldn't surprise me if that happened again. So not one to plough into if you've had a bad day. If you've had a good day, maybe you can back Brandy Love, maybe you can back... I wouldn't put anyone off actually back in Brooklyn Glory each way either. I know they think an awful lot of that mare as well, but there's 4 or 5 of them in there. All have a chance, and there's a Elliott mare called Hollymount who won actually up in Carlisle for the Crawfords as well. So you know it's a very strong race, not one to probably get ploughed into. But anyway, that ends the Sunday preview of the Dublin Racing Festival of Day 2. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel down below, and of course give me your selections for Sunday's racing. Who do you think is going to win the big handicaps? Who's going to win this very trappy 5-runner Irish Gold Cup? Will Manila Indo bounce back, or will it go to one of the more reliable Delta Works or Mellons or Ken Boys, the ones that have been around the block and back? And also, do you think Appreciated is as good as Christmas showed? I think he might be. I think he'll win again. And he could win again very impressively. Till next time, I'll probably do a Cheltenham Festival anti-post review after these 2 days, maybe on Monday or Tuesday. And going forward this week, I'll probably start doing the Cheltenham official previews, the Day 1 to Day 4 previews. If you've been on the channel for years gone by, I do the graded races from Day 1 to Day 4. Then I do a handicap video, and closer to the time, I'll do a final selections video. But all good and all getting our selections out on the table and invoking a bit of Cheltenham chat. So until then, hope you stay safe, stay well. Hopefully we land a fair few bets over Saturday and Sunday, and I'll see you guys then. Cheers.